Hello and welcome everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Today we are talking about procrastination. My name is Magdalena Ponurska, and I am the creator of Courage to Create, a platform that allows you to get inspired, get a little bit of education, participate in challenges, get some kick hands if you need that. If and when you are procrastinating. So today, that's the topic. We have I will let you introduce yourself, and then you can introduce Max, because Max is our special guest for today.
All right, my name is James Stager. I am the creator of the future of human creativity. I aim to, spread as much creative power, through my writing. And I'm accompanied with Max Mermel, one of my classmates from the school I go to. I'm very happy to introduce to you all and get to see his perspective on things.
Awesome. I appreciate the opportunity. Like I said, it's great to be doing this stuff. I think it's great what both of you two are doing, and I'm super happy to participate. So thank you for inviting me.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Hey, James. Question number one.
Question number one. Okay, you guys, who wants to start
It
before we
doesn't.
get?
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay. So, can procrastination be helpful, or do you think it's helpful?
I start. So procrastination can be helpful occasionally when we allow ourselves to procrastinate. So in my opinion, there are different levels of procrastination. There's a heavy, medium, and light procrastination. So light procrastination is excellent because it gives us the space to procrastinate a little bit and then get the work done. Medium, it's still healthy because we can procrastinate, we can postpone some things and then still get them. And then heavy procrastination is when we're like, oh my god, the project is due to in the next 6 hours. How do I get it done? And there's different levels of motivation that comes with that. So again, with a light, and again, it depends if you need that extra motivation from deadlines or not. I have to say for myself, I am a medium procrastinator. So I do like to procrastinate, and I work better when I have a deadline looming over me. However, when it's in the medium range, because it still allows me to think, to be creative, and get things done. When I get in a situation that it's a heavy procrastination and it's like, oh my god, I'm 6 hours away from my deadline, and I still start freaking out, that does not produce good results. Max, how about you?
Well, I would agree with what you said. There's definitely not one definitive answer. There's certain levels to it. I would say personally, in my experience, I know different types of people. Some people work much better when they're structured over a long time, and some people actually can produce more quality work when they're in crunch time. And there's just this is how their brain works. I would definitely say as to that last, type of person that maybe can produce better work when it's crunch time, it can also get very unhealthy very fast, especially if you have super big projects and you are waiting until like hours before a deadline to get them in. In my personal experience, procrastinating does not help me because then once it's sooner, if I'm procrastinating and then something is due soon and I only have a small time to get it done, I'm typically going to be more anxious about it. And then I'm going to procrastinate even further or just produce not work that isn't great quality. So really, it's a personal thing, and I would agree you definitely have to be aware of what levels you're procrastinating at, and whether the habit is beneficial for maybe a specific thing, or whether you're trying to convince yourself it's beneficial when really it's inhibiting your ability to relax and take a long time to put thought into things.
Yeah, definitely.
And, like, the reason I asked this question is, our last topic for our last live was force, or our like word of the live. That's kind of what we call it now. Is force. So we were talking about how you should or shouldn't force creativity. Um, so there's a lot of force that comes with procrastination, especially in the last few
Absolutely.
hours. So the second question, um, what do you do to combat it? Slash, how much does it happen to you?
Happens all the time. No, I'm joking. James, if you want to read comments from our wonderful viewers, I will do that, and then I will answer a question.
Okay, that sounds good. Um,
Are you able to read it or no?
I mean, is
It seems,
that it seems more of a comment, but I mean,
okay, I will read it. Okay, because it looks like
okay.
you're having a hard time reading it. So for me, it seems to be a matter of increasing focus on what I need to do and decreasing focus on 1,000 other things that I could do. And then force seems to be actually helpful to me because of the above. So that's just, thank you so much. That's a different perspective on how our brains respond to procrastination, and how, and just like Max said, it completely depends on what kind of person you are and what works better for you, and knowing yourself. I think the biggest challenge in procrastination is actually knowing yourself and knowing how you respond. um, and I think with age, I would say, procrastination does not go away. I think with age, we just find different ways to cope with it. So, James, can you repeat your question?
The second one?
Yeah, the second question. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, what do you do to combat procrastination slash how much does it happen to you?
Okay. So it happens a lot, and what I do to prevent it is plan, plan, plan. So I use all sorts of different planners and different methods. I'm always experimenting and trying new things on. Uh, If you would ask me, have I found the perfect method? Absolutely not. It's still a work in progress. So I still do procrastinate.
Well, and it's funny this is about procrastination, this whole live, because I've been struggling with that recently. Especially once I entered high school, I started getting very self-conscious about, is my work as good as it was in middle school? Am I actually advancing? How how is this going to reflect on how much I can grow and then eventually get to college? Because I go to a college prep school, and so there's a big emphasis on keep improving and everything. And at one point, I was so, anxious about it, I would kind of forget to do the work, or I would put it off because I didn't want to confront that it maybe had some room to grow with it. Um, or I would simply get distracted, especially with social media that we have in these generations, especially Gen Z. We would grow up with that. It can be a huge distraction as well. And the social media algorithms are designed to keep you scrolling or whatever. So those are two different things. Ways that I struggle with procrastination. And as for how I would combat it, I wish I had plans as elaborate as yours. But my dad, he works in real estate, so he uses a lot of online tools, and he has a lot of deadlines and everything like that to get reports in and all that. And so he uses spreadsheets. to organize his work, and he's recommended that to me. So right now I'm working with him to have, that kind of visual aid and, everything to remind me, but then also you obviously need to have a motivation to work. And so I think being more aware of, why you're doing stuff and trying to turn it into something more fun. Because if you enjoy something you do, then you usually don't put it off. You want to do it. So it's definitely multifaceted, and you have to put in a lot of different efforts to combat procrastination. And I think, especially if there's one thing that I kind of say in this answer, I think I would want to emphasize and capitalize on, taking it at the source. So think about why we procrastinate, which I'm sure will be a later question, and how to combat that, that core of why we do it.
Awesome. Let's see. Okay. As writers, how do you progress with your articles when you do procrastinate?
So for me, and I love what Max said, that it has to do with motivation. So writing for me is something that absolutely brings me a lot of joy. So there isn't much procrastination for me when it comes to writing. Only because it fills my bucket and I love it, and I could do as much of it as humanly possible. However, other things get in the way, right? That cut back on my time. So for me, there isn't much procrastination with writing. There's procrastination with other things. So just at the top of my head right now, because it's a tax season, right?
Yeah.
I procrastinate on taxes because I am not motivated at all to do it. So I rather do writing, but not taxes. So it's it goes back exactly to what Max was saying. What is it that motivates you? What is it that you're passionate about? And then being fueled by passion makes things easy, and at least for me, and I don't have to procrastinate when I'm doing something that I absolutely love. Another example of things that I love doing is training. So when it comes to training, I can do that all day long, and I don't have to procrastinate preparation. I don't have to procrastinate delivery, only because I love it. So maybe the question is, how do I fall in love with taxes? And I have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, my perspective is very similar with that. James, as somebody that goes to school with me, would know I could talk for hours and hours about world religion and theology and philosophy and the difference between, like, the subtlest difference between two different denominations of the same religion. And so that's something I enjoy. And when I get an assignment in religion class, I'll typically do that one first. I also enjoy math. I find it, relaxing, and it's almost like a puzzle. Science, on the other hand, while I do enjoy it, I feel like some of it's a bit repetitive sometimes, and so I'm less motivated to do that, and obviously, I'll put that off, and maybe I put more time into my religion work, more time than I need to, and then that ends up becoming less time with my science work. It's just an example.
Mhm.
Um, but also, I don't know how to phrase it. Also, the important part is, like I said, making stuff fun, making yourself motivated to do stuff, or sometimes just the motivation to get it out of the way. Like with taxes, it's very hard to make taxes something that I'm going to look forward to, but just kind of the motivation to get out of the way, and then maybe even make the other work a reward. So we're talking about procrastinating with articles. If you like writing articles and that brings you joy, then maybe make that like kind of like in terms of your work, right? Make that kind of like your dessert of your work, and then make maybe your meal or the stuff that you kind of just have to get through, like the stuff on top or whatever. Make that stuff the first stuff you do, so you get it out of the way. And then for me, typically, I'm less stressed, or I'm able to really get all the joy I can out of the work that I love doing because I'm not burdened by the other work. So that's an approach that I would take.
I love that approach. So dessert.
Yeah.
However, I always want to start with dessert first.
Don't we all? Yeah.
Who came up with the whole idea that you have to eat dessert after the dinner?
I know. It's right there in front of you. You want to eat it first.
But I just to so there was a question from our lovely and amazing readers. The question is, fill in the blank. I would rather write than work on my taxes. And then the comment is, sounds like a process of discovering and embracing our passion and giving ourselves permission to do it. I seem to procrastinate on things that I love. I can't figure out why. The main meal versus dessert idea is awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Definitely.
So another question they ask is, we like our AI versus pen and paper questions a lot. So he asks, any thoughts on planning with pen and paper versus digital tools?
Mhm. I was actually talking about this with one of my teachers the other day, coincidentally, and how, maybe things set more in our brain when we do it on pen and paper, but technology is so accessible, it's so much easier, especially like now around my house, I have to like actively go get pen and paper, which I probably shouldn't have to. I should probably have it ready, but versus on my phone where it's always on me and I can open it up and do something and I can, have it anywhere. So I think just the convenience of things like phones and technology make it so much more appealing in terms of creating plans. But personally, if we're talking about effectiveness, I think for me, pen and paper is better because it's something I have to be thinking about more. I have to come back to it, and I'm physically writing it down. I actually feel more committed to it.
I agree. Same thing for me. Pen and paper, way much more fun. And I love also sticky notes. So I'm a
Yeah.
big proponent of sticky notes, and occasionally my whole wall is covered with sticky notes. And I know
That's a good thing.
I know there's the digital version exists and all of it. I get it. And there's something still magical about just writing with a pen and having that experience and also seeing the sticky notes. And it's just, I don't know, it just makes me happy. So maybe it goes back to being passionate about sticky notes.
Right. It always makes people happier too to receive a physical letter in the mail. I feel like that's a special kind of joy than rather receive a text message. That's why my parents, whenever somebody does something really awesome for me, they always have me write a handwritten note and mail it, just because it's a very special feeling. And nowadays we're getting less and less, letters and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a really good point. That although like electronic things are so much more accessible and easy to use, like pen and paper, you have to, like Max said, you have to come back to it. You have to hold on to it. There's so much more being applied just because nowadays you know like we don't even have to look at our keyboard to type things out, and it can
Yeah,
be
yeah.
so instantaneously.
Yeah.
But there's
So
more
the rarity of
stuff
it too
being
is something that contributes.
exactly. Yeah. Okay. More questions. All right. um in what ways do you find yourself procrastinating?
In all the ways that are possible. Done.
Nothing undiscovered.
It's creative ways to procrastinate. I think that's a great article. Or and creative ways that you can procrastinate and not write that final paper. Just James, I'm just going to really quickly interject. Welcome to everyone that joined us. Today we're talking about procrastination, and we're having great time
Yeah.
discussing it. because we're discovering that actually, shockingly, there is no difference between Gen X and Gen Z in terms of procrastinating. We still procrastinate because
Very
we're
universal.
beings. If you have other questions or thoughts on that, please put it in that put that in the chat. Okay, back to you, James.
Yes. So, in what ways do you find fascinating? Like, I feel like there has to be more than one way to
Oh
do
yeah.
it, and everyone has their own specialty. So that's why I'm asking.
Max, do you want to start?
Sure. So there are, I'll just name some simple examples, a few ways I do it. The first one, which is more positive, I would say, just going down loopholes with my actual work. So I talked about earlier, and for those that just joined, I kind of mentioned I have a passion for religion, and I go to a Catholic school, so we do have religion classes, and sometimes I can write like I've written handwritten too, like 8-page papers when really they had to be like 5 sentences, just because I keep going down that rabbit hole. Sometimes though it's negative because I'm actually taking away from my work. So there's a few requirements in the rubric, and I focus a lot on one part of the rubric because that's the part I like. And then it comes like there's 3 hours left to do the rest of the rubric, which I have to then integrate in really fast, and often it's lesser quality. I would argue, though, that's more positive to the other way I procrastinate, which is almost like voluntarily, or I guess involuntarily more so, distracting myself. So besides just with the phone, because that's a whole nother, story. Obviously our phones are very distracting. I also have ADHD, so sometimes even the objects around me can be distracting. And I have a lot of objects around me usually. So like sometimes I'll pick something up and I'll just start playing with it and I get distracted, or I get a paper and I start drawing and I'm like, oh, this is a good break. I'll come back to my work soon, and I don't. So just kind of taking anything, including my phone, anything that I can absorb myself into that takes me away from my work is another form of procrastination. Those are just two ways. I'd be curious to hear some other ways.
So my sneaky ways of procrastination is telling myself that I still have time.
Mm-hmm.
I will do it later. Then the next level is coming up with excuses why right now it's a really bad time to do it. So it will start with, oh my god, I am so tired. And I cannot do X, Y, or Z. The next level, after I'm too tired, then it's like, and Max, it's a different way of finding excuses, which is like, oh look, there's dishes. Oh look, there's laundry.
Exactly.
Oh
I mean,
look.
this is definitely more of a priority than this right now.
But yeah, in a way, it's the shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
Outside of the phone. And then the next layer, so it's like the onionness of onions of procrastination. Is, oh, I just thought about my friend Sarah. I'm going to give her a call and see what's happening with her. I haven't talked to her for ever. And then 3 hours later, I'll be like, oh my god, look at the time, it's time to go to bed. So yes.
I agree with that, and I identify with it too.
Yeah. To-do lists are not the boss of me, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, this is a really good question. What would happen if you did lean into procrastination? What would you end up doing? Does it suggest or inform us about anything about ourselves? So let's start with the first sentence.
Yeah. What was the first sentence again?
Leaning
What?
into procrastination. So
Okay.
what would happen if we lean into procrastination? So if I lean into procrastination, then I would go with Max's metaphor and look for a dessert.
Mm-hmm.
Eat dessert first. No. there's a rebel in me, so I always talk about eating dessert first. But actually, in reality, I do eat the meals in the proper order. And so I would do, and let's say, let's stick with taxes. So I would do taxes and then use my love of writing as a reward. So after my taxes are done, then I would allow myself to spend 3 hours writing. But that is a very intellectual exercise. Emotionally, I'm not sure. Emotionally, I'm still very much attached to procrastination.
Yeah, willpower is. I mean, that's the core of procrastination. Because like you're supposed to do something, and you want to do something, but then there's a greater desire. Then the desire to do something. There's a greater desire to do something else. Immediate gratification or whatever it may be. Maybe just putting something off because you simply don't want to do it, like taxes. As for Abby, if I would lean into procrastination, I would definitely. I would try to take that same approach of getting the stuff I don't want to do done first. So then the other stuff seems like entertainment, and then in that way I can also supplement the time I spend on my phone or doing other stuff that's not productive, and I can supplement that with something else I enjoy. While then I can also get the other work done, and all that would be kind of trying to avoid the snowball effect. I think it's helpful when you have experience with procrastination, like first semester. There was some stuff going on, home life and stuff, and there was a lot of stuff that led to procrastination with some assignments. And so after having experienced that, it's really helpful. Now I know, like, don't get into that again. And that's another motivating factor because I know what the consequence is if I do lean into procrastination.
Awesome. Let's see. I'm actually out of questions, but let's see,
Oh,
Max, do you have any questions for us?
Um, for James and for either of you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, what is you kind of already touched on this, but what is going through your mind when you're procrastinating? And are you usually aware when you're procrastinating, or are you unaware until maybe it's crunch time?
Hmm. You want to start with that?
Well, I will let you answer first, James.
Okay. Am I aware of my procrastination? I would say usually yes, mainly because I'm pretty like diligent with my work. I can usually get my self back on track when I do like derail. But it does feel like I do sense that something's off when I am just not paying attention and
Mhm.
start fidgeting with something else. Um, but sometimes like you almost find yourself like trying to procrastinate because you just hate something or hate doing something so much.
Yeah.
Um, like doing your math, you're like, uh, or at least for me, because I'm not a math guy, but I'll find myself just like, biting the tip of my pencil or, something like silly, like making a drum pad out of it. But it's just, you know, it's about like your passion for doing something that helps you, steer clear of that procrastination.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good
that's
answer.
great. A great question. So awareness. Step one: am I aware that I'm procrastinating or not? For myself, I will say 99.9% I am aware. And I know better, and I have all the tools from different programs and different different classes and different books that I've done. I know better, and I still procrastinate. There you go.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It just doesn't go away. For it.
Absolutely.
So I love having I absolutely love and adore having the different perspectives between Gen Z and Gen X. And I think, to be fair, I think this is true for all the generations. And I think procrastination doesn't go away. It's mostly, and I love that you've mentioned, Max, the whole thing about social media, right? So now it's so much easier to procrastinate because we get into these black holes of social media and whatever that looks like for you. But I can't help and wonder, 100 years ago, right? Procrastinating, I'm sure they were.
Yeah, I mean, you use whatever around you. I suppose social media has created like a much bigger thing to distract yourself with, but procrastination, because it's so embedded in us, we can use anything to distract ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And then again, I cannot help and wonder the flip side of procrastination. And I think we've touched on this topic today a little bit as we were talking, because what all of us were saying is that, and Max, you touched on this, that 3 hours go by, right? So you are so focused and you are so in love with writing about religion. So you are in the flow. You are you're doing deep work, and time disappears, right? And that's healthy, that's normal, that's desirable, right? And I think no one talks about it. So 3 hours go by and then we wake up, because I have very similar experiences, right? So 3 hours go by, I've been writing for 3 hours, and I'm like, oh my god, there's all these other things that I was supposed to do, but I didn't do because I was so in flow. I was so in deep work that now I'm going to go and scramble with all the other things. And so you could say that I was procrastinating.
Yes.
You could make the case. However, that's the flip side of procrastination, is the flow, right? Like when we get in flow, the times goes away, we are not aware, it just appears. We are incredibly productive. we deliver extra high quality products, and yet society tells us, research tells us, TV, whatever, oh my god, you are a big procrastinator. And so I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Like, where is the balance? How do we balance that?
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to our first question, what's healthy, what's unhealthy procrastination. And once again, it's a very, very personal balance. It's all about how you observe it. So sometimes there's a lot of denial about procrastination, no, I'm just, just my way of doing work. But when obviously the problem is either when you're exhausting yourself and you're burning yourself out because you're concentrating all your work to a very tight time period, or because stuff is actually not getting in on time. And those, there are other, kind of things that might tell you have a problem, but those are like the things that I've told you, okay, now you've passed that line. Now you have to, reconsider exactly how healthy your procrastination is. But it is typically portrayed pretty negatively, and for good reason. It's kind of inherently negative to put things off, but it can be good. And so that's something, because the negativity of it's pretty universal. You put things off, then you get stressed out, and then sometimes stuff doesn't get in. That Gen Z, Gen X, whatever area of the world you are, that's kind of straightforward. The difference would be in the actual healthy part and what extent it is healthy to you and healthy to other people. And that's what things like you said, TV and society and stuff can't tell you, because that's within yourself.
Yeah, very well said. James, what are your thoughts on flow versus procrastination?
Healthy Yeah, I mean,
healthy.
like there is, definitely a double-edged sword to, procrastination, but it almost depends on the person, what task are you doing? Are you actually efficient with your procrastination? As weird as that sounds, but it is fun, like really like hard to find that balance of the flow state and actually procrastinating. But I did see one last question in the chat that kind of sparked a thought. Like, you know, have you ever procrastinated or not asked an important question because you weren't paying attention or you weren't or you were procrastinating?
Mhm. I would say yes. There I don't exactly know what you mean by, like, asking an important question. Like, if you just mean not really paying attention, let's say, for example, in my life, that translate over to class and school, but also getting assignments. And I have absolutely procrastinated. Before it wouldn't happen. This year is kind of different because of the transition into high school. I've absolutely procrastinated to a point where I have to ask my teachers for extensions. And luckily, my teachers are very generous and they understand that I'm trying to combat procrastination sometimes. So they understand that effort, and usually they give me extensions and stuff. It doesn't happen too often. It happens sometimes. It's happened about twice this year. So no, and I know at that point it's actually a positive experience because I know when it's going to get out of hand, and I know when I need to first of all admit I'm procrastinating, and then make a plan to stop procrastinating, or even just the awareness saying, right now I'm eating dessert. Let me go back to dinner. Let me get that stuff all done. So, but to answer your question, yes, it's happened before where I haven't gotten stuff in. It's happened before where I haven't paid attention or asked the right questions because I'm too focused on something that I should have done before. But it's rarer and rarer because as I learn from those experiences, I know kind of the pattern that it takes and the fact that I don't want to have those experiences again.
Yeah, that's great. So it's a self awareness. It's a huge component in being an efficient procrastinator. I love this new concept.
Efficient procrastinator.
It's very rich, and there's a lot of a lot in there.
Well, the oxymoron is effective in conveying the point. Procrastination isn't exactly always bad.
Exactly. I think we just came up with a new concept. So our takeaway for today is go and be an efficient procrastinator. Be self-aware and eat dessert before dinner.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Or thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Max. It's been true pleasure. Thank you, James, for facilitating, and we'll see everyone next week. Take care.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.